champion. That's right. Recently, this past Sunday, I took down my very first Store Showdown. This here is the deck that I used to go undefeated, absolutely dominate the Store Showdown. Boba Energy Conversion Lab. If you've been watching the streams, I've been absolutely grinding this deck. This is pretty much all I've played since like a couple of Director Krennic videos that I have. I've pretty much hard switched to Boba Green, and I've been playing nothing but this deck ever since. And I've made, various changes as I've gone through the process. I started out with kind of like a typical Boba Green deck list, and I adjusted it based on bad matchups, my own play style, and I've kind of settled on this, and it performed exactly how I needed it to perform. All of the things I've added to this have done exactly what I've needed them to do. If you notice the kind of spicy things I've added into this that you typically don't see in a Boba Green deck, I have a couple TIE Fighters, and I have one of my favorite cards now, Attack Pattern Delta. It's probably my personal favorite addition to this list, and I think it's the spiciest addition to this list. So the event itself was 5 rounds of Swiss. Okay? There was no top cut or anything. It was just 5 rounds Swiss, and then whoever has the best record at the end wins, right? So round 1, I get paired against a Leia Red. Now, typically, I kind of come into these games, and I'm like, oh, phew, Leia Red, easy peasy. Sabine, these aggro decks, I have a great matchup against them. And the more I play it, the more I feel like it really is kind of a toss-up, right? Very specific things have to happen for me to win. Very specific things have to happen for, the aggro deck to win. Boba Green is very good against aggro, don't get me wrong. But the first game plays an A-Wing, turn 1. Turn 2 plays a Wing Leader, and I didn't have an answer to it. I didn't have a Waylay. I didn't have a 7th Fleet Defender to ECL into the A-Wing before it gets buffed. That's exactly the thing that they need to happen, and that's like the worst thing that could possibly happen in my scenario. Game 1, he just crushes me super fast. I was on the back foot the whole game. Not being able to answer that turn 1 A-Wing into turn 2 Wing Leader, it's so hard to come back from, and I couldn't pull it out. And so I was like, man, lost my first game, like, this sucks. Not exactly how I expected it to go, right? But I stayed cool, I stayed calm, stayed collected. Going into game 2, I knew exactly what I needed to find, and turns out I ended up finding it. I got 7th Fleet, I got Waylay, I had the answers, right? So that turn 2 answer on the A-Wing is huge. The next 2 games, I ended up having my turn 2 play, and things went exactly as planned, and I just kind of dominated those games. So, great start. That game that I lost was the only game I ended up losing for the entire event. Spoiler alert, I know, but I ended up winning the rest of my games. Our game 2 get matched into a Han Green, good local player who just came off a win the night before from another Store Showdown. So I was going into this like, okay, this is going to be the real test, right? He just won his Store Showdown with Han Green. I hate playing as Han Green. Let's see how my deck does, right? The games did not go his way. I will admit that. He wasn't getting ramp consistently. I was. And in any game like that, you're playing from behind, right? If Boba Green gets his ramp, or any green deck for that matter, gets their ramp and the other green deck doesn't, they're already behind. So I was just pressuring with all of my units. He couldn't deal with them. He didn't get any U-Wing reinforcements off. He didn't get his home 1 down. Like, I was able to finish the game pretty quick. Game 2, similar deal. I was just playing super aggressive, dropping units that he couldn't deal with. Really just controlling the board the whole game. By the time he got his home 1 down, by the time we got to that point in the game, I had dealt enough damage throughout that it really didn't matter, and I was able to finish him off before he started healing. And that's kind of like the perfect best case scenario against Han Green is I just want to end the game before home one comes down, before Ewing reinforcements come down, in order to ensure that we don't get into this like grindy slog of a game where Han Green ends up restoring a bunch and he can really come back from that, right? So everything worked out perfectly, and it was a quick couple games. Now, going into game 3, I was feeling great. Played Leia, that's usually a win for me. But the Han Green win, I was feeling great. And so, going to another hard matchup, Vader Green. Now, this player, another good local player, he beat me last time we got paired in a local event. And I was ready for revenge, right? I knew how to play the matchup. I know it's a hard matchup for me, but I was just hoping things worked out. And just like Don Green game, he didn't see ramp at all. And for Vader, that's it. That's the end of the game, right? If you do not ramp, you're already probably going to lose. He was on the back foot the whole time. Even though he was removing units, like, he just did not get to the end game fast enough, and I was able to finish him off both games by ramping and getting to that end game, just dealing plenty of damage to finish him off before he started getting his big stuff out, before he was able to stabilize. Really, it was just a rough couple of games for him, but I'll take it, right? We were able to finish our games pretty quick so we could watch, the games next to us. Game on my left was Iden Blue versus Iden Red, which is just a degenerate matchup, right? Hard control versus hard control. Absolutely disgusting. Game to my right was another freaking Iden Blue against a Boba Yellow. And so these are the top 3 games going on right now. My game and then these 2 games to the right and left of me. So I'm going to play the winner of one of these games. Now, the game on my left, obviously we know that's going to go to time, right? Hard control versus hard control. Each of them won a game. It went to 3. There was not nearly enough time to finish game 3 for them. So their game went to time. Game on my right, Boba Yellow actually squeaked out a game. And so they went to 3 as well. And then their game 3 went to time. And the way FFG, Fantasy Flight Games, has in their rules is if your game goes to time and you're tied by the end of it, you both get a loss, right? And this would have really impacted the event because there would have been nobody undefeated except for me. But the way a lot of players do it, it's like, oh, our game went to time. How do you want to handle this? We don't want to do a double loss, right? One of us should move forward. So how do we want to handle it? And usually it's through a die roll. Game on my left, the Iden Blue player won the die roll against the Iden Red player. On my right, the Boba Yellow player won the die roll against the Iden Blue. So honestly, I never want my games to go to time. That's why I play the way I do. That's why I play fast. That's why I play, typically more on the aggressive side, because I do not want my games to go to tie. I do not want to lose to a freaking die roll, right? So that was kind of my mission for this whole event. If I run into a control deck, we're not going to time. I'm going to finish the game. So round 4, I ended up playing the Boba Yellow player that took down the Iden Blue player. And I'm pretty comfortable in the Boba Yellow match. I know exactly what needs to happen. I know exactly what I need to do, exactly what I need to look out for. So game 1, I got ramp, which having my Boba turn a turn early is huge. That's pretty much how you win. Boba turn a turn early, I'm able to set up my board perfectly. I curved out really well, controlled the board the whole game, and there was really nothing he can do. I just kind of dominated. It was really one-sided. Now, the second game was really interesting, okay? So I got my ramp, my turn 1 play, starting hand, perfect. But he has the initiative, which this is really important in this matchup. He has the initiative, plays his turn 1, I play my turn 1. He claims going into turn 2. Now, thinking about this, I'm immediately going, oh my god, I should have just not played turn 1, claimed initiative, so that I could get my resupply down safely, because Boba Yellow has a card, Bodhi Rook. Now, if you don't know what Bodhi Rook is used for, against Boba Green, you really want to use him to snipe out your opponent's resupply. And that is exactly what happened. Turn 2, start of the play, boom, Bodhi Rook snipes my resupply. Looks like we're going to share a Boba turn, right? I end up being able to play a turn 2 play, and it's fine, but sharing a Boba turn as Boba Green against Boba Yellow makes things really, really awkward. You never want to get in this situation. And so we were really back and forth the whole game. Neither of us really had, control of the board. We were kind of just beating each other down back and forth. And after our Boba turn, it ends up getting to the point where it's like, okay, we have to just race. There's no way either of us are going to take control of this board. It's going to turn into who's going to deal damage faster. Now, after our Boba turn, I have an attack pattern delta. And guess what? I have 3 units on the board. I think it was a TIE Fighter, a Crafty Smuggler, and my Boba Fett leader. And he has his Boba Fett leader and some other units, right? I drop the attack pattern delta, buffing all of my units. And at this point, if he can't answer it, I'm about to deal 15 damage and end the game. You just kind of go, answer it. What are you going to do, right? If you can't answer it, it's game over. But if you can, might be looking a little bad for me. He ended up not having an answer. I deal 15 damage, end the game. And boom, that was the first time this event, that attack pattern delta really secured the win for me. So I was pretty stoked about that. So in the finals, I am playing the deck that has pretty much been the boogeyman for me, the deck that I was the most scared of, hard blue control, and the deck that I pretty much built a lot of my changes around, right? I really teched for this deck. So I was really excited to see how I fared against it. Game 1, nothing spectacular happened. It seems my opponent just didn't really get the answers to the problems I was putting on the board, right? I was just playing a ton of units. TIE Fighter is incredible turn 1, especially if I have a Greedo, right? Turn 1 play Greedo TIE Fighter. It avoids Power of the Dark Side. And typically, TIE Fighter and my low-cost units act as like a shield to play around Power of the Dark Side. And they did their job, exactly that. It was really hard to, just be picking off one unit each turn because I'm playing so many units, especially taking advantage of, Boba's untapping and whatnot. So I played too many units for him to really keep up with, and he didn't have, I don't even think he got any vigilance that game. But I ended it before he was able to stabilize. Nothing special, but, everything went in my favor that game. Game 2 was interesting. My sideboard is almost completely teched for this control matchup. I've got the Confiscates to counter Entrenched. I've got the Emperor's Legion to avoid getting board wiped, specifically by Super Laser Blast. And I've got the Swoop Racers to be kind of like a faster version of Bosk, right? They're 4 power. They come in at 3 instead of 5. And Bosk doesn't really do anything in this matchup because the hard blue control doesn't play any units. There's 6 units in the list. So Bosk was out, Swoop Racers are in, Emperor's Legions, Confiscates. Interestingly enough, I only put in 1 Emperor's Legion. But after this game, you're going to understand why I'm going to continue to put 2 in after sideboarding. I don't know why I put 1. I just didn't feel like making room for the second one, but I will from now on because of this game. Now, game starts out fine. I start with a Confiscate in my hand, and I'm like, yes, this is perfect. I'm going to keep this for that Entrenched. I'm playing units. They're kind of getting picked off one by one. Get to the Boba turn, bring him out. He gets Entrenched pretty much immediately. And then I'm like, yes, okay, this is what I've been waiting for. Confiscate on the Entrenched, get that extra 4 damage in, which is pretty vital because this was a close game. and I'm still, playing units. My Boba turn sets me up really well. Um, I ended up having 3 units. Next turn, I attack pattern Delta, but it doesn't end the game because he's healing so much. It usually should end the game, but he found his vigilance this game. Vigilance for 4 is ridiculous. He's healing like a madman. And so it didn't end the game, but it still did a ton of damage, which is what I want if I'm going to even finish this game. I have to get through all of that healing. So I don't finish him off before he gets to 8 resources. The Super Laser Blast comes down, wipes my board. Now I have an Emperor's Legion in hand, but I decided not to use it now because I had a Vader in my hand. So I was thinking, okay, I'll play the Vader, bait out the next Super Laser Blast, his second one, play the Emperor's Legion, play another Vader, right? And that's basically what happened. I dropped my Vader, he Super Laser Blasts the second time. I get Darth Vader back to my hand and 7th Fleet back to my hand after playing the Emperor's Legion, which was super clutch. And then next turn, I drop Vader again, and he was able to deal with one of my units, but I top deck a Surprise Strike. Boom, Surprise Strike onto Vader, finishes the game. So attack pattern Delta, Confiscate, and Emperor's Legion were all vital in this final game. I was really excited to see attack pattern Delta pay off, and I was really excited to use Emperor's Legion for pretty much the first time. I know why it's good, but I'd never really used it, and I think that's why I only put 1 in from the sideboard. But I'm forever going to put 2 in when I'm playing these control decks. But yeah, 5-0 on the day, 10-1 in total games. So my only dropped game was from that Leia in the beginning. And not to mention, the store accidentally got sent a second champion Mace Windu. So instead of getting 8 top 8 Mace Windus, they only had 7 top 8 Mace Windus and 2 champion Mace Windus. So I got them both. Pretty awesome day.